All right, y'all, we are gonna get started. Thank you, the hardy few who stuck it out when I said you had to sit near someone. That's a good sign, you're in the right place. I am so pleased to introduce this panel. This is our session called Deactivating Climate Doom, Cognitive, Emotional, and Embodied Strategies. My name is Katie Dawson. I'm an associate professor of theater here just down the way in the College of Fine Arts. But I also serve a really important special role, which is that I am the head of creative collaborations, which I am so delighted to partner with Heidi Schmalbach and Planet Texas 2050 to think deeply about where creativity is central to our mission and action of Planet Texas 2050. So I have been deeply pleased to see the ways that we are continuing to think about transdisciplinary partnerships on campus. I'm also really delighted to share that I get to share this time with three really amazing humans. So I'm gonna do a short intro of them now, and they're gonna give a longer introduction to themselves in a minute. So at my farthest end, we have Meg Mattingly, licensed professional counselor, founder and therapist at Willow Tree Collective. Next, Starla Simmons, licensed clinical social worker and clinical assistant professor at the Steve Hicks School of Social Work. And then to my left, perhaps you're right, I'm not sure, I've got to remember how that goes, looking the other way. This is Leah Cox, who is a dancer, choreographer, and associate professor in dance here at UT Austin. So the goal of this session is to name and explore the complexity that many of us feel about the climate crisis, what we are maybe cheekily calling climate doom, the doom that looms large in our lives. And we want to do this engagement with a range of experts who come at this question from very different pathways. But each of them have a practice that I would offer is a form of healing-centered engagement that is crucial to this time right now. Dr. Jonathan Foley, if you were able to connect with his keynote at the start of today, reminded us that our discussions about climate and environmental issues should start with science and evidence, but that our solutions require that we also acknowledge and build from our shared humanity. To that end, we are going to use this brief hour at the end of a pretty long day for many to explore this importance of shared humanity through connection to the earth, to nature, to each other. And we want to begin with a moment to give you some connection with yourself. We're going to do a little check-in, as we call them around here. This symposium is about resilience, research, and action. So I got an actual question for you that I do want you to think about the answer to. The question is, what is one thing that you are finding, feeling, or figuring out right now about climate change and resiliency? And that can be in your life or your work, which sometimes is both. I'm going to say that one more time. What is one thing that you are finding, feeling, or figuring out right now about climate change and resiliency? And my model would be that for myself, I'm thinking a lot about slowing down, the importance of listening and taking time to think and process and care. So think about that for yourself. One thing. And I'm going to invite you to turn to someone nearby, proximity-wise, and take 3 minutes. So a pair is a really nice number for 3 minutes, but if you got a group of 3, go for it. That's good too. And to share out with each other one thing, not your life's work, one thing that you are finding, feeling, or figuring out right now about climate change and resiliency. Go for it.
Your thing you're doing, I'm like, I'm gonna glean that.
I had the directions written down really. Well, these are pretty much it.
Yeah.
But I got it from some friends who do facilitation things, liberating structures. And I've done it with music. Like the first time we did it with music, and we did it in this big room. It was so cool, and I did it with my students, and I did it with nature sounds in class. But it's just like I went here, and then like talking about it, and then like listening again is really cool. So I didn't make it up. I took that.
I mean, isn't that what we're all doing?
That's what we're all doing.
Just like putting a little spin on it.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, there's not that many people in here, so
And maybe it doesn't, but just holding a more complex
listen. Yeah,
and I'm just gonna keep teaching.
I have to keep. I feel like part of my work is difficult to. Maybe I'll say this.
The inevitability.
Just like my frame of climate anxiety too.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah.
People needing resources to survive.
Yeah, I think overall, like how are all of our
social workers, we're like
artist practice, creative practice responding in a dialogue with
I'll say more students, but students in the communities that they're working with, they're like,
making
there's just stress on the day-to-day, but like climate change is impacting their day-to-day so much.
Right.
So,
I don't know if you listen.
yeah, and I think the bodies are
They're
disconnection to
doing
our
like
bodies is part of that
right now. They're doing a report on water in our area,
process.
and it's been so like fascinating, and also
This is your 30-second warning.
yeah.
where we're at. And so, yeah, I think that is already our community is seeing.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, I think, at the heart of
Yes,
it.
But it's
exactly.
I mean, I think
It's
about it.
going
going to
to,
affect everyone.
even,
I could do less and
yeah.
do more at the same time.
I think I'm figuring out how.
Yeah, I was having one of those weeks last week where I was like, too much. And it was
Really wanting to do it.
All right, I'm going to invite you to find a pause place in your conversation. There will be more.
Finding, feeling, figuring out.
Figuring out.
And I'm going to invite you to come back to me. You might take a minute right now just to feel the room. What might have microscopically on a cellular level already shifted a little bit because we took a moment to talk, to connect, to listen. How important that might be. I'm going to take that same question and I'm going to use it as a way to introduce our panelists and ask each of them that same prompt. So, maybe I'll start with you, Meg. Is that all right? Yeah. I'll keep in my same order.
Okay.
So, Meg, what is one thing that you are finding, feeling, or figuring out right now about climate change and resiliency?
There we go. Hi. So I love this question. And I think it speaks to what Katie was just talking about, kind of this noticing in the room how things shifted. I am finding out that in this work, we need each other, that we need connection, we need community. I'm a private practice owner here in Austin, but my background is in community work and youth advocacy. And as I get more and more into this space of climate psychology, climate advocacy, this is not an individual, isolated need or experience. This is going to take all of us, and there is power in that. So I'm really leaning into that and learning that we need each other in this work, and how isolation is actually really creating a lot of the issues we're having around climate doom, climate anxiety, overwhelm, is that we are sitting in these spaces alone. So I love that we got to kind of see that play out, because that's what I'm kind of in right now.
Awesome. Starla, up to you.
Hello.
Yes, I'm live. I'm Starla, and I am a social worker and a clinical assistant professor at the School of Social Work, Steve Hicks School of Social Work. A lot of my job is teaching students how to be social workers, but also working with community organizations and integrating social work services. I also work with our students around ecotherapy, environmental justice, and mental health, and connecting with the land. And so I love this question around finding, feeling, and figuring out. And so my work is really rooted in social justice. And so my lens is always through that lens of justice. And as social workers, we're a lot of times working on the front lines, and so really working with the communities who are most impacted by climate change, and thinking about how the impact of climate change is more of like a day-to-day survival, like this emergency around like, how am I going to survive if I live in a floodplain and we keep flooding? How am I going to find water? How am I going to be able to access food? And the list goes on and on. And so I think one of the things that I'm finding is like everything is connected. Everything is connected, and human beings have to, we have to be in harmony with the earth. Being connected to the earth helps us. It can be a source of a balm, and it's a source of anxiety in some ways, but really just keeping that sort of justice lens at the forefront of it, especially with the role of how social workers can play in climate change. So that's what I'm finding and feeling.
Thanks. Leah?
Is this there? You can hear me, yeah? Okay, great. So I have to say that I come from, or I'm feeling really strongly, histories and lineage, and I worked for a long time with one choreographer by the name of Bill T. Jones, and I'm working now with another choreographer named Liz Lerman, and both of them have won MacArthur Genius Grants and like a whole list of fancy titles, but what that means to me is I feel I have really big shoes to fill in terms of honoring what I learned from them. And in particular, both of them have, I think, been on, I would call it the front lines of taking big hits for merging the world of art, as Bill would say, with the world of ideas. And as Bill would say, creating the world that he would like to live in terms of how we gather people of diverse backgrounds and experiences together, and how I can use dance and movement to address things beyond the marvelousness of the stage and watching dance on the stage. And Liz is the person that I'm working with most recently, and how she gathers together people with great energy and curiosity to become interested in using the body and returning to the body as a source of physical intelligence and knowledge and wisdom on a variety of levels. And so right now I'm thinking more and more about, I was just sharing with Katie that there's a way in which I'm very curious about what we're losing in terms of our connection with our bodies, and how I see people very dissociated from you know, they think from here up, they feel from here up. Well, you can't feel from just here up. And how it's creating a lot of the problems that we're seeing and experiencing, and how dance, which I love to nerd out and do all of the dancey things in the studios and on the stage, but that might not be the thing that I need to do right now. And how my art form can be shifted to help people reconnect to the incredibleness of being a body. And I mean that in terms of just being able to feel big feelings and to see another person and go, Oh, probably the first thing we're going to talk about is what we ate today that delighted us, and not how important you are at your job and how important I am at my job and how big the problems are and which side of the social media thing and all the things where we just got all up here again. So, and in part, that's a little bit of a selfish thing because I'm mourning the loss of audiences and curiosity about going to embodied performance and what that can mean, all life performance. And the last thing that I'm really curious about is, in the wake of there's gains and losses for everything, maybe dance has to shift, and maybe how we are dealing with the undeniable future of climate change and what it's giving us in terms of gains and losses, how I can learn from that to maybe mourn the way that my art form is changing and see new futures for it.
Thanks, y'all. Y'all make me think a lot about this idea of approaching climate solutions embedded in theories of belonging, about how much we need to connect, or maybe even pivot, pull a dance term, towards our ancestral past, to this wider collective, to understand the way our bodies, minds, and spirits are all connected again around these issues. We're going to be a bit radical now. Instead of hearing this group pontificate across each other, we actually feel a shared commitment to learning by doing. So we are going to cede the rest of our time to each other to lead a very short, very accessible, everyone can do it, nothing is hard, and you always have choice with anything we're going to do, to take you through some of our work practically. So each person's going to have about 10 minutes or so to take you through a little bit of their practice around these ideas, maybe give you a strategy to take back into your own work, or if nothing else, give you some time to reflect a little bit and connect with yourself, all right? So that's how we're going to roll. And I'm going to turn it back to Meg to get us started.
Awesome. Okay. So as I said, I am a private practice owner in town. I'm a therapist, and where I'm really interested in this work is how this work of connection, but it's this holistic approach, but I'm going to focus a little bit in so much of the climate change we can live in this place, climate doom, that's the name of our talk today, of this big feeling, and it's very overwhelming, and I'm really interested in how do we actually create space to feel, to move through what we're holding, to allow for grief, to allow for gratitude in this space. It can be so big. So a way that I like to think about it a little bit that's helpful is sort of the fight, flight, or freeze model. So be listening to these, and I'm curious, I want to know just through hands if any of these resonate with you. And I think we can bounce between these. We're not ever in one state of this, okay? So I think of it as, when addressing climate change, we can get into fight mode. So that being, we are constantly moving, we are acting all the time, we are posting things, we are going to all the marches, we are talking to our family, we are nonstop, we are in this mindset. If it's not us, who else is gonna do this, right? This just like go, 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 which leads to burnout, which leads to overwhelm, and that is not a sustainable place to be. And then we have freeze, which is this, oh my gosh, this is such a big issue. What can I do, right? I am one person. Okay, I'm rinsing out my peanut butter jar. Cool. So that's my contribution. But that doesn't solve this huge carbon issue. Da 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 da. So that, or that freeze of dissociating, completely apathy, just ignoring, not engaging at all, despondency, right? And so thinking about those, I'm wondering just by a show of hands if any of y'all can relate to any of those, right? I'm sure we can any of y'all relate to more than one of those? Right, like we move through these just extremes of what, it's so overwhelming. It's so interesting in this field. So I'm actually I'm a part of this organization, the Climate Psychology Alliance, and it's an incredible resource and an amazing organization that's doing research all over the world just around this intersection of mental health and climate change. And it's such a growing field that there are new words that are being created to describe these feelings that we have. Solastalgia is this feeling of this loss within a place that we're still in, but just this sadness because it's shifting. Ambiguous loss, disenfranchised grief, intangible loss. Like there's all these new words because this is a new thing that we're dealing with, along with eco-anxiety, climate anxiety, eco-grief, there's just endless. So what I want us to move through, there's so much content, there's so many things, but I want to simplify it. As part of this connection today is how do we feel less alone? And part of that is our connection to nature, pulling from indigenous wisdom and practices. And so what I'm going to have us do, again, when we are in those fight, flight, or freeze, having a place to come back to ground us, to know, again, we are not the only ones in this. Mother Earth is holding us, we are a part of, we are nature. And so what I'd like us to do is I want you to take a minute, and I know time is kind of short, so we're gonna just do a minute, maybe 30 seconds. So I want you to think about a nature ally that you have. This can be a place, this can be a being, this can be an object. And go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to imagine it, if it has a feel, if it has a taste, a texture. What do you notice being with that object or place? I want you to hold that nature ally and just think about what does it bring up for you? Is it bring up safety? Does it bring up joy? I just exhaled. The place of comfort. And with your eyes closed, I want you to just remember this nature ally. We can be so in the weeds. Everything feels really big. But it's so important that we are coming back to this place of connectedness, of safety, of togetherness. So go ahead and open your eyes. And how are we on time, Katie?
We have 3 minutes, Meg.
Ooh, perfect. Okay, I was talking really fast because I wanted to make sure. In these next couple minutes, maybe we take 3 minutes, those 3 minutes. And I would love for you to share with the person next to you, around you, what came up for you? What did you notice in your nature ally? Was it, and without judgment, if it was hard, if you were like, I really struggled finding something, that's okay too. Maybe this is a time to talk out as you're talking with your partner or your group, ideas or things that they shared. You're like, oh wow, actually that's something I connect to as well. So let's go ahead and take a few minutes and share with what your nature ally is.
I think I'm like cut mine in half.
Does that lead in okay?
Oh, that's perfect. I'm like, I feel like we could take this on the road. It's so perfect. And solastalgia. Nostalgia, that is like
Glenn Albert. Albert, he is a
that is
philosopher.
a word.
That is the word. He, and then new actually is also someone, I'll send you there as well, but he is a researcher from Helsinki. He's at Helsinki, in Helsinki.
Okay.
And it's somehow something kind of religious.
Is there a particular?
He has a podcast called Climate and Happy.
You know what?
With a
Yes, I like to
psychologist
sit.
in the
It's
States.
really happy.
He is
Sometimes
doing
even just imagine.
incredible research.
I was just gonna say out on the beach.
He's really fascinated with creating new words
Yeah.
to describe an like ambiguous loss is a really good one.
Yeah.
The wind
Yeah.
the trees, and so it's not.
Yes, we are losing this thing, but we still have it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really fascinating.
That's really,
stuff.
really fascinating.
Yeah.
I told Bob what I wanted
I
for
gotta cue this
when I
music.
got
Are you
tenure
gonna
finally.
wrap up.
$500 wind chimes. Really pretty ones that have like an amazing sound.
I want to cue up my I have a neighbor who has it. I'm going to cut half of mine so it won't be as long.
Okay.
I was
The
being
sound is
very
there.
ambitious with my 2 listenings.
Okay.
We'll just listen once.
But I'll tell you real quick. We've got 1 more minute. 1 more minute.
I have a friend who has it. That's so good, though. I really.
No, we need after
After this, yes.
spring break.
After spring break. After spring break.
We're gonna grab coffee and we're gonna chat.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I just
I feel like we have a lot to chat about and a lot to
chat about. I
maybe
know.
collaborate and put out in the world.
I know. I didn't want to like seem too eager. but-
No. With you.
I
No,
don't want to
with
seem
you.
too thirsty, but I'm like.
I'm also thirsty.
I feel like I just
Yeah. Be fun.
I feel like I have so much to learn. Like, and I just was out there. There's so much to learn from it.
Well, and same, because I really
love
don't know
to-
anything about climate psychology, and it's really, I'm like, this is,
Fascinating.
I don't know these words. I mean,
I have been deep diving.
I feel like I could, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm now the. I think I might.
Think about 30 more seconds. About 30 more seconds.
Oh, right, right.
Which is like laughable. Not laughable. It's not fair, but it's still it's very debating.
Yes.
It's so new.
Yes.
Like we had our monthly meeting last night. All states aren't represented yet. But I'm really excited. Like they're sharing.
The bear thing, whatever people do in the windows, did people
So I'll be able
everyone have the bears?
Are we doing? Like,
All right, I'm going to invite you back, wrapping up your conversations.
I'll just say as I close out, again, it's just so you can feel the connection in the room, and so I hope that was again just a nice little reminder and something to carry with you, maybe to share outside of this space. So thank you.
We do take applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to shorten because I think I was being too ambitious, but as you can see, I'm pulling up some sounds. When I was thinking about what to contribute to this panel, I just kept thinking about, well, it was a point when my grandmother died, and she has been such an influence, and she had a farm, and I grew up with my 14 first cousins running around, harvesting chickens, making fresh blackberry pie. We ate from the land. We had rows and rows of greens, rows of peanuts, rows of green beans, and she really nurtured this beautiful experience of 14 black children running around totally free in nature. And I realized that was like such a beautiful privilege to have that, and then to also grow up in a very small town in rural Missouri, where my family pretty much, I would say we integrated a school, and this was in the 90s, late 80s, 90s. But again, I had this experience of being outdoors all the time and feeling really safe, feeling really comfortable, processing a lot of things outdoors. Whenever I teach about ecotherapy, I always tell this story, but y'all haven't heard it yet. I don't have time for it, but it's about me crying when I broke up with my 8th grade boyfriend and burying his picture under a willow tree. Like, I was doing spells. I was doing all sorts of things. Nature was holding me in ways that, later on I'm like, oh, wow, but it just, I think the importance of being connected ancestrally to land is so healing and so important, and lifting up the ways that communities and indigenous folks and people who have been pushed out to the margins have survived and thrived in this beautiful harmony with land is the solution. And so, I like to start by, one of the other things that I do a lot in classes, talk about ecotherapy. And ecotherapy is a researched, evidence-based, growing practice of essentially having nature as your co-therapist. And as I was learning about this, I thought, this is just what indigenous people have been doing for all of time. But now it's solidified because you have to have research to do that in the Western world. But so this is a little bit of an ecotherapy practice that I like to do with students and like to do with others that can just take your mind and your heart outside, take you somewhere. And so I'm going to have you listen to some sounds for 1 minute. And you can close your eyes, you can keep them open, however, whatever feels the most comfortable with you. And you're gonna process with a partner. So if you are sitting next to someone, feel free to actually swivel your chair and listen to it back to back. If you don't want to, you don't have to. If you're sitting solo, that's fine too. But we're gonna listen to some sounds for 1 minute, and then we're going to have a little chat, and then we'll listen to them again if we have time. Okay.
We're gonna go back to back.
Yeah. So you can close your eyes. You might need to take a breath. Make yourself comfortable. All right. Is everybody feeling nice and relaxed? I never want to stop that. So now, with your partner, take turns, just 1 minute each, sharing where your mind went and what you were feeling, maybe what you were feeling physically, maybe emotionally, maybe a memory. Just share what that experience was. And it's okay if you were like, oh, I was kind of anxious and I wasn't feeling anything. That's also okay too. But take a moment and share with the partner, and then we'll come back.
Very centered and focused. I did. See, I wrapped into this at the end of the session, so that is my honest response. I was a little distracted.
I go there a lot of times too. So I had this one, I felt that my chest relax, and I was like, ah. And then, you know what, the back-to-back really mattered. I was like, I'm just sitting back-to-back, and it was like, oh, you kind of became a tree, but just to know that there was something alive behind me, as opposed to being this, like, I'm just in the void, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought, when is the last time I ever sat with somebody and we just sat there and knew we were both appreciating the sounds of nature? And there wasn't the expectation to break it with a conversation or to worry, well, is this person going? You know, and I thought, what a great thing. And then I just thought how delightful these birds were. I said, how can you be like down when you hear those little birds like twittering?
They are amazing. They are. I have this track of, I don't know, music I listen to when I'm writing or whatever, and a couple of them have bird songs like woven in.
Yeah.
And I've kids, every time my kids have been like walking by my office, they're like, is there a bird? I'm like, it's in the music. But like, I love it because it's
I'm gonna put this back on presenting.
that way. So we're doing it on time.
I never use Microsoft PowerPoint. Okay, there we go. Oh, nope. Sorry about that. How do you just go to one?
Do you need
Oh no, we're good. We're back. I was just putting it back on the slide because I'm not gonna.
time?
Do we have time?
5 minutes.
5 minutes? All right, we'll do it. All right, we'll start wrapping up. If you haven't, hopefully each person has shared. Did each person kind of get a little chat in? Yes, absolutely. Yes. We'll do 30 more seconds. Oh.
It's so funny you do the. I've ended up using these nature sounds. This guy who goes, his name is Gordon Hampton, and he goes and like his archiving is essentially all of these landscapes that are disappearing, these natural landscapes, and I have one that I just play every time I want to write. And I was like, I need to focus. This is not going to work. And I just put on the nature sounds.
Yeah.
It's more times than not, I have to put on because otherwise it just, I don't know why. But the nature sounds are something like environmental in nature. It's, you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. It does. There's something that really makes a shift for me that, yeah, matters. And I love, I mean, are you a white noise, like ocean noise?
Okay, I think we're gonna come back. We're gonna wrap up. You're gonna have a little tiny bit more time to reflect, but you might have to carry that reflection with you. So what we're gonna do now is, I hope that you were listening, because the next prompt is, I'm gonna play the sounds again, but this time you're gonna listen through your partner's experience. So thinking about what they shared with you. Some people are like, oh, I don't wanna do that. I just transferred anxiety. That might happen. But listen through your partner's experience. Try to kind of visualize the story that they told you. And we'll do that here, starting, well, as soon as I start this music, sounds, now. Oh. All right. Oop, I always want to fade it down instead of stopping it so abruptly, but the DJ in me. So I would, instead of us processing with each other, if maybe one or two people could just throw out how that felt, the entire process. What was that like? You're like, why did you make me do that? Maybe that's the question. Yeah? Mm-hmm.
I also improved the second time.
Yeah. Anybody else? I feel like you kind of summed up the complexity that we feel when we think about our experience. Well, especially as a person of color, like my experience in nature is my relationship with nature has been complex. There's been violence, there's been historical trauma. So all of these different things and ways that we relate to nature, how we're connected to nature, are so different. It's so different, and it's so important for us to think about those different experiences, to integrate how we feel, to think about other lenses outside of our own experience as well, and really lean on that. And I think, you know, and I have such a privilege, like I said, of having this beautiful relationship with water and nature, despite stigmas about Black people outside, and also thinking about environmental justice and the work that I've done in schools and how there's just huge disparity with access around so many things. But there's also so much beauty that I always come back to and connect with, and I think about, I think about my family and the connections that we've had, and that keeps me centered and helps me to be a good steward of the land and just temper some of the complexity, being able to come back to some of those things. So just a little practice. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, okay, good. So I think that for those of you that were with me on this session beforehand, I'll say that the thing that I love about dance or creative movement is that it's metaphorical or it's suggestive. So it can't be reduced to a single meaning or robbed of its potency, even when we try to interpret it or code it into language. The other thing that I love about what I call physical thinking or embodied creative thinking is that it gets us working simultaneously on multiple levels: physically, emotionally, intellectually, imaginatively, and spiritually. All of a sudden, all of the stuff that we have siloed out comes together in a kind of beautifully cohesive, coordinated entity, kind of like how we were originally born into the world. So to wit, so those of you that came before, you'll see it before, but like, so here's a shape. What do you see? What do you see? What? What do you see? What do you see? Okay, and I'm holding 2 cakes. So, referencing my career in the food service industry. So case in point, that no matter what we think must be, and this thing surely is, it is that, and it is this, and it is that, and it is this. So it's non-dualistic thinking, and it's also fun. It's charades. So what I want to do is to play with shape making as a way for us to exercise this kind of same creative play and meaning making. And to do it, we'll use something from Liz Lerman, who I told you about earlier that I'm working with, and she's at Arizona State University, and she's generating something called the Atlas of Creative Tools. And what it might be is still in development of how she's sharing it. But one of the tools that she's developed is that I'm going to use and take us through today is called movement annotation. And it doesn't necessarily have to make sense to you, the title, but I'm just telling you what it is. So if you go and look her up and you find it, you'll see it. So one of the things that I'll frame it is that what we just saw is it doesn't have to be true, and it can be true for now. This can be octagon, this can be hey, this can be what, this can be 2 cakes. That is the beauty of creative thinking, is that we get to, for a moment, suspend that it must be the case. And we get to play. And that's what I think is really beautiful about the creative arts. So where I'd like us to go is to create a shape. For now, everyone, you can do it sitting down, you can do it standing up, it doesn't matter. What I want you to do is use, maybe you could use what you started with at the beginning. What are you finding, feeling, or figuring out? You could also use, if you're like, that's fun, but I'm more interested in processing what I just did with Starla or with Meg, you can use one of those things, but you're gonna make a shape that I'm gonna ask you to go a little bit on a gut impulse or intuitive, and because parameters are fun, and both Liz and Bill T are in the postmodern lineage, we use tasks and we use parameters. So your task is to make a shape that somehow is based on what you find, felt, figured out, or one of these other experiences you have, you can use all the parts of your upper body, okay? And I'd like you to think about the relationship between the parts that you might choose, yeah? What facing they're in, how much energy is in the shape, so I'll guide you through that, cool? Okay, now that we know the lay of the land. Okay, yeah, will you? Okay, here we go. So step one, create a shape or gesture about something that you found, felt, or figured out that could have been your first or something along the way about climate change in one of these events. Use your upper body, form an intentional relationship between two or more upper body parts, and be specific in how your shape relates to some part of the room, floor, ceiling, walls, a piece of furniture, cool? If you get distracted by seeing things, close your eyes and make it, and you can kind of work from the inside and then go, okay, yep, there's the table. Okay, no, there, no, there. Okay, yep, that's it. Okay? Out you go, 10 seconds to make it, no big deal. Okay, go back, reset. Great. Do it one more time. Make sure you like it. And by like it, I mean like how it feels. This expresses something of what I found, felt, or figured out as nearly as I possibly can with two body parts. Go back. And then enter it a little bit more slowly and see if you can truly inhabit everything about that feeling of the find, felt, figure out. So I'm thinking about what I found, felt, or figured out. I understand how it's in my cells for now. I'm using imagination. I can feel it in my fingertips. I can feel it in my collarbones, my chest, my shoulders, my head, my face, my jaw. I know everything about this shape from an inside-out experience that I possibly can, and I understand it has a relationship, however known or unknown, to that generating insight. Okay, and let that be. Now we're going to, okay, can we do next slide?
Next slide, yeah.
Next slide, now we get to interview someone about their shape, okay? So I'm gonna demonstrate, I am going to occupy both roles, okay? So maybe it's gonna be, this is what I think the fun part is, and where you have to remember the thing that Liz suggested, that it doesn't have to be true, and it can be true for now. So if I go this, and you go, and Leah number 2 says, okay, well my topic, first I'm gonna share, okay, this was about, my experience with Starla's soundscape. And someone goes, what does the fact that your two hands are hovering with a lot of tension have to do with the soundscape you just heard? And I go, well, it's because these are like the bird's feet. Okay, what is the fact that your palms are hovering very close to the table and almost sliding off the table have to do with that soundscape? And it's like, well, it's like I never have enough time. Like I'm always about to slide off the cliff of like something to do, but I got pulled back on it and I got to listen to the bird for 2 minutes. Do you get the play? And it just invites you. So you're going to have it with partners. Trio, you'll have to figure out maybe one person takes turns, one person, 2 people take turns interviewing one person. But here's your reference of how you start to make the questions. You can't do it wrong. And just notice how you feel about the working of your mind to try to find things that make sense to explain this experience. Cool? Or this shape that you made. Good? Okay, we'll have like 3 minutes to do it. Out you go.
I like my shape was very stiff. It's like, I was like, I think, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, I feel like I'm kind of like, okay, just like shared, and now I'm like,
Oh no! Did you make new?
like,
Did you
really
make new?
exposed and just
Oh,
kind of
I got it.
my little willow
Okay, good.
in a nest, something. Yeah, I was feeling that. I did. Sure, I did. I was like,
I think so. Actually.
Oh. What was your shape? Will you do your shape again? Yeah, I know. I'm like, high nest. I'm thinking about being so protected. Yeah. I'm like, go back to. Yeah. I mean, I know. Yeah. Yeah. I think that. Well, it's interesting. I think too. Like, do like.
If you haven't shifted people, shift people now, and the other person can give their shape.
If music was playing and we were dancing, I could dance and I could feel comfortable doing that. But then there's like the outside of the box feeling of like, yeah. Mhm. Oh yeah. Yes. Yes. Where, right? That's why I love that we're doing stuff with dance. Like, oh God, you're like,
Where do we want? We want to be done by 4:55. Is that right, or am I late?
trained counselors.
Okay, that's good.
there, but there's definitely students, professors who are like, I'm not going to do anything silly. I'm not going to like.
Trio, if you haven't shifted, maybe making sure you've shifted.
No, I think I've worked with elementary school kids for so long that you kind of have to force yourself to be a little bit silly.
Okay.
When did you get those out?
Oh, but I printed them out
That's all right.
earlier today.
All right, I'll use these.
Okay.
Yes. This is, yeah. Oh yeah. How long were you at Urban Roots? For 3 years, yeah.
I thought it was my forever place.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone good? Everyone get a chance? Good.
Yes. I don't know the.
And maybe if there's like, maybe 2 people or 3 people, if a few people could share what kind of surprised or delighted you or resonated with you about this movement annotation experience. What'd you discover in the process of narrating or trying to answer the questions, or what delighted you about someone else's answer to a question you posited? Yeah.
It was what you demonstrated when you demonstrated it, which is just like you see something different than everybody else does and with the gesture. And I think that's just that frequency that we can be looking at the same thing and have such a different interpretation.
Yeah, changing interpretations. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah. New possibilities for like, oh, now I have this new tool that if I do this again, like I can experience that or try it out. Yeah. One of the things that I love is it's our ability to maybe rewrite or reimagine a narrative that I started here and I was like, oh no, I have a lot of anxiety. And it's like, yeah, but that's not the story that I want to tell. So I'm going to tell the story about sliding off and coming back. And then it's like, oh, right. That is true, and it is, it's not where I started, but it's a different truth that I could give to it, and then it reframes my experience and my relationship to this thing that I very instinctively made. So thank you for playing. Thank you for playing, and thank you for moving.
All right, we're in our last few minutes. I want to thank Meg, Starla, and Leah for facilitating this time of connection. I feel like I certainly feel a bit more enmeshed right now with myself, natural world, and certainly with you, Leah, because we got to share this time together. Planet Texas 2050 is housed under the Bridging Barriers Initiatives. And that act of bridging is such an essential part of what we really need right now. Bridging requires mindfulness and spaciousness. And we need those things because those things seed imagination and possibility. On behalf of Planet Texas 2050, I want to thank you so much for being with us on this very first day of the symposium, for coming to be a little loose and a little radical in a final session that was less PowerPoint slides and a little bit more playful inquiry and exchange. I know that's a stretch, and the remaking of those spaces of academia and our lives and the way we make sense with one another is a part of the solution, my friends. Part of the solution. So we actually have just a couple minutes, like maybe 3 or 4 minutes. If anyone has a question, we certainly welcome it to any person on the panel, or we could also give you those 3 minutes back, which might be my greatest gift of all. But I'll just check. Anyone have a question they'd like to ask? We're sort of welcome that as well. You can never tell someone that you're giving them free time and then ask them if they have questions. That's a teacher note to myself. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like one of those comments that's, I'm going to rephrase this question, which is, where are you going to take this on the road?
Oh. Oh, thank you, Heidi. And I think Heidi was the one who really brought this group together to think about what we wanted to do. And I think it's really interesting when we first started talking about it, we're like, oh, we don't really want to talk with each other. We want to actually give you all space at the end of the day, the 4 to 5 o'clock slot. That's a rough one, right? We've all been there. You felt it coming in. You didn't want to sit through another talking at. So again, just that invitation to connect, to turn back, to think. I think it's essential right now. So, and with that, we are going to end. So have a great day. Thank you for this time.